Hey everyone, today I'm going to show you how to use Excel to make a spreadsheet that will help you analyze your ticker tape or Spark timer data. So I've started here with my table already partly made. I have my distance data here. All my distances are measured relative to the first dot. So this is 1.8 centimeters from second to the first dot. The sixth dot is 8.32 centimeters to the first dot, and so on. I have a column for each of my data points, so for each of my variables rather. I have one for the dot. Well, I just have this as a placeholder, don't really need it too much. I have one for the time. That one's going to be important. I have one for the distance measurement, and I have one for the velocity. And we're going to calculate this, or we're going to get Excel to calculate this for us. What I want to do first, I should say here, I've only used one bit of distance data. Now I got this from an example on the internet. There's going to be some differences between this and your data. And one of the biggest differences is you probably have more than one trial. So you could have a column for each trial. So you could be distance 1, distance trial 1, distance trial 2, distance trial 3, and then over here you could have the velocities for them as well. But that depends on what you're actually doing. I have this here in centimeters. You may want to add another column to convert those all to meters, or we can just take the acceleration value given from the graph and then convert that later into meters per second squared instead of centimeters per second squared. That, again, up to you. So let's get started. First thing I want to do, I have my dot column here. I want to add my numbers to my list. I could type each one of them in one by one, but I don't need to. I'm going to use Excel's fill handle. Type 1, and I'm going to select this cell. This is the cell with the 1 in it. Now you noticed this little box down here in this little tiny box down here in the bottom right-hand corner of the cell when it's highlighted. When I put my mouse cursor over it, it turns the cursor from a big white plus into a smaller black plus. If I click and I drag this down, oh, actually this is not working, right? I need to add a 2 here. If I click and I drag this down, what Excel will do is it will fill in everything below. That's why it's called the fill handle. And it fills everything below based on what's been selected. And it makes some assumptions, which are usually right, about what you want to fill the rest of them in. I put 1 and 2. I want the rest of them to be filled with the next numbers in sequence. And Excel knows this, or it assumes this. So as I drag it down, you can see the numbers that's there, and that little yellow goes up. And I've got it here. It just filled in all of the cells, assuming that if we had 1 and 2, that I'd want to go 3, 4, 5, and so on. So that's one thing the fill handle can really help you with. It's very good at filling in things based on it makes some assumptions that'll probably be true. For our next time, I'm going to do a similar thing, but I'm going to add a formula. A formula will take other cells' values, do some math to them based on what you type in, and put out and get a final value which will be put into the cell. What I want to do with this time one is make a series of time values. I want it to take the previous time value and add the time it takes to put down another dot. Now in this data, that's 1/60th of a second. This is for North American ticker tape timers or Spark timers. If you guys are going to be using a 50 hertz timer, since the electricity here in China is on 50 hertz, so you're going to use 1/50 instead of 1/60 in part of this formula. To type a formula, I start by hitting the equal sign. Equal sign means this cell does not have a value, it has a formula. Next, I wanted to take the time from the previous dot. So I go up here to this dot, that's the previous dot here, and I click on that, and it adds its address, its location, B2. That tells the formula the value of the cell should be B2, and then, well, we'll get the rest of the math. I want to add to B2, whatever's in B2, I want to add the time it takes to put down a new dot, which for this data is 1/60. Again, this is something, this depends on what spark timer you're using, or more accurately, where you're using it. 1/60 or 1/50 depends on the frequency of your AC power. So just fill that in. So this is 1/60th of a second. Now what I want to do is fill that in all the way down. What it's going to do is it's going to assume that I still want the cell directly above it, which I do. So when I fill this in, it'll all look just fine. This is 1/60th, 2/60th, 3/60th, 4/60th, 5/60th. This is 6/60ths or 1/10, 0.1 seconds. That's exactly how I want it to be. So that's, again, really useful. Saves us some time. If you know how you want the calculations to work, you can find the calculations. All right, we need to find the velocity. Now, a lot of methods I've seen involve you finding the velocity at a time halfway between two dots. We don't need to do that. The velocity at this dot, this dot here, dot number 2, is actually at the halfway point in time between dot 1 and dot 3. So we can find the velocity of this dot number 2, the instantaneous velocity at this time, if we just take the distance between the neighboring dots and divide it by the time it takes, or the time that passed between making the first dot and the two neighboring dots. So the distance between the two neighboring dots and the time between the two neighboring dots. So this is a good place for a formula. Equals, to start the formula, I want to do this in brackets first because adding and subtracting, I'm going to be doing some adding and subtracting, and that usually comes after dividing, but I don't want that. So I'm putting it in brackets to make sure it happens first. I want the difference in the distances, so the distance between them, C4 minus C2, close the brackets, divide by B, give me a second, forgot my brackets, B4 minus B2. To put in those references, I just click on the cells. So it's C4 in the blue minus C2 in the green divided by B4 minus B2. So this is the time of the next dot, or the distance to the next for the next dot, minus the distance for the previous dot. That's the distance between those dots, divided by the time between those dots. And I hit enter. So 90 centimeters per second. Now if I drag this down, it's going to fill in the rest of them the same way. Let's take a look at this one here. You see, it's got the same cells in the same position before, or after, before, after, before. And that's going to be true for any of them. This one here, same thing. This one here, same thing. So we have now all our velocities. And now we can graph these velocities and get a good velocity versus time graph. If you'd like to see more about graphing, how to turn this into a starting graph and then how to work with that graph, you can check out some of my other videos. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can find links below. If you're watching this in my class, you can get the video from me. All right, I think that's it. So thanks for watching. Bye.